How are the working capital requirements of the business determined? That is on what factors the working capital requirements depend. Then we have done different approaches to working capital management and calculation of the working capital requirements of the business. Now we move to cash management. कैश मैनेजमेंट का सिर्फ ओवरव्यू है आपके सिलेबस में. So we'll start with that. First is the meaning of cash. Now cash as a term has different interpretations. If we talk in terms of a layman, for a layman, cash may be cash in hand. In accounting terms, we say it is equivalent of cash in hand and cash at bank. While in finance, we also include the near cash assets in definition of cash. So it is cash in hand plus cash at bank and the marketable securities. That is those securities which can be immediately converted into cash as per the requirement. They also come under the definition of cash. Now, this is how you define cash. Next, we come to what are the motives for holding cash. I believe you might have done these motives in economics also. So, for an individual, the first and foremost motive of holding cash is to meet the day-to-day expenses. That is the transaction motive. For the business also, meeting day-to-day expenses comes under the transaction motive. For a business, cash requirement may be to make purchases. You have to meet your daily expenses, the cost of running business, then distribution of dividend, payment of taxes. All this requires a proper cash management on part of the business. Okay, so if you remember, we did cash budget in accounts also in the first semester, where you were seeing what were the receipts of cash and wherein we were making the payments in cash, and the difference between receipts and payments made up the surplus or deficit, that is the closing cash balance, which was carried over to the next term. ओके सो जब हमने कैश बजट करा था, हमने मंथली बेसिस पे करा था. ओपनिंग कैश बैलेंस था, जो भी रिसीट्स थी कैश की, दे वर एडेड, योर पेमेंट्स वर सब्ट्रैक्टेड एंड यू गॉट द क्लोजिंग कैश बैलेंस. If it is a positive value, then it is a surplus of cash. If it is a negative value, then you have a deficit of cash. So this is how the business keeps a track of how much funds need to be tied up in cash for the transaction motive. After that, the second motive is the precautionary motive. For an individual, precautionary motive के लिए आप पैसा कब रखते हो? In the sense you keep money for unforeseen contingencies. Okay, say I set aside some money for if there is some health issue for any member in my family, so I keep aside that money. That becomes a precautionary motive for holding cash. For business, it will be again to meet unforeseen contingencies. For example, you are handing out goods on credit basis, you have credit sales, but with credit sales with debtors, there is always a possibility of bad debts. Okay, or delay in payment on behalf of the debtors. So if you have given a credit period of 15 days and the payment is overdue even after 15 days, you'll need cash from some other source to meet the requirements of your business. So precautionary motive is keeping additional funds with the business so as to meet any unforeseen contingency. Then third is the speculative motive. Speculative motive is wherein you try to take advantage of a profitable opportunity which is outside the course of the main business of your organization. Okay, so even for an individual, for a business, you see some investment opportunity which is rare and which is giving you above average return. You will keep some funds to actually take advantage of this opportunity. So, see, for example, there are some good shares with good fundamentals which are available for investment, and the price right now is much below what is the fair price of those shares or securities. Taking advantage of this situation requires some extra cash with the business. This holding is speculative motive. Again, say you are sourcing raw material from a vendor, and though that vendor is winding up, so he's offering bulk raw material at a low cost. So you are, instead of taking your raw material for, say, as per monthly requirement, you now plan to take 6 months of raw material because the price offered by the vendor is very low. So this becomes a speculative motive for holding cash by the business. And last is compensating motive. Compensating balance is basically required in terms of minimum balance which needs to be maintained in the account. Okay. When I talk about an organization, this is the minimum balance that needs to be maintained in the current account of the business enterprise. What is a current account? Can anyone tell me? What is a current account? Yes, class. Any idea what is the minimum balance requirement for current account? So 25,000, and this is on monthly basis, daily basis, quarterly basis. Yes, Sibin, Vishal. Generally, the banks give you quarterly minimum balance which is required in current account. So it varies again across banks. It can be 2,500, 25,000, 10,000 depending on the bank. But these requirements are generally on quarterly basis. Now this minimum balance never earns interest for the business. Okay. This is a requirement for the bank, which by the bank basically for the business enterprise, but it's not giving any earning in terms of interest to the business. So this is the compensating motive of holding cash in your current account. Okay, so these were the four main objectives or motives to hold cash. After that, very general factors affecting the cash requirement. ज़्यादा cash requirement है या कम cash requirement है, terms of purchase and sale. अगर आप डेटर्स को ज्यादा टाइम दे रहे हो पेमेंट के लिए, देन यू हैव हायर कैश रिक्वायरमेंट. बट इफ यू आर गेटिंग मोर टाइम फ्रॉम योर क्रेडिटर्स टू मेक द पेमेंट, then you have a low cash requirement. So if your credit payment period is long, your cash requirement is low. But if your credit collection period is long, then your cash requirement is high. So which is given in the next point also, collection period of receivables, then production policy of the firm. Under this, how many months of inventory you are holding up as per your operational cycle. तो जितना ज्यादा इन्वेंट्री की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी उतना ज्यादा आपकी कैश रिक्वायरमेंट भी होगी. Next is nature of demand of firm's product. If your firm has consistent demand throughout the year, then you don't require much of inventory क्योंकि आपकी जो ऑपरेटिंग साइकिल है उसमें बार बार आपका कैश जनरेट होगा. Okay, so there the cash requirement won't be very high. But if you have a seasonal requirement of product, then their holding of cash will be high because your operational cycle becomes long in duration. सेल्स, कलेक्शन, इन्वेंट्री होल्ड करना, इन सब में ज्यादा टाइम इन्वॉल्व होगा. तो उस वजह से आपकी कैश रिक्वायरमेंट भी क्या होगी, इंक्रीज हो जाएगी. Another example on the slide is that say you are in the business of producing and distributing luxurious products. Okay, so such uh, products would require more investment as compared to service industry or public utility wherein the cash requirement will be low. After that, sales asset relationship. Under sales asset relationship, sales asset ratio is the ratio of sales to the assets held by the firm. Here assets mean the fixed assets. तो जितना ज्यादा ये proportion होता है उतना ज्यादा आपको कैश की रिक्वायरमेंट होती है. Say your sales are 70% of your total assets. Okay, so this actually shows the financial strength of the business. तो 70% सेल्स मेंटेन करने के लिए आपको अपने फिक्स्ड एसेट्स में उसी हिसाब से इन्वेस्टमेंट करनी पड़ेगी. फिक्स्ड एसेट्स में क्या इन्वेस्टमेंट होती है? It is in terms of operating those assets, maintaining inventory, maintaining the debtors in the business. All this is dependent on the sales asset relationship. This is actually a financial metric to see the strength of performance of the business. So we say higher the ratio, better it is for the firm. Next is amount of current liabilities. Under this, a firm which has higher current liabilities. Higher current liabilities means say आपके जो creditors हैं उनकी value बहुत ज़्यादा है. Then your short-term loans you have a very high value. Outstanding expenses बहुत है business में. So all this will require larger cash holding for the business. So these factors need to be kept in mind when the business is deciding on how much amount should be kept in liquid cash. After that, objectives of cash management. Earlier we have done objectives of holding cash. Now cash management becomes an integral function of working capital management in the business. So accordingly, the objectives of cash management are फुलफिलिंग दी वर्किंग कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट्स. जो अभी हमने बात करी कितनी करंट लायबिलिटीज है, उनकी मेच्योरिटी कितनी है, क्या टाइम ड्यूरेशन है, ऑल दिस विल अफेक्ट योर कैश होल्डिंग. प्लानिंग कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. say you want to replace one machine with another or you want to expand your business, all this will require incurring expenditure in terms of cash. Handling unorganized cost. So, holding cash to meet your unforeseen contingencies. Initiate investment. If you wish to expand your business, enter a new product line, all this will require cash handling. Better utilization of funds. Holding of cash involves a trade-off between liquidity and profitability. If you are holding surplus cash, It means you're not able to put that money into some investment purpose, and that is not generating revenue for your business, because holding idle cash is not generating any revenue. So you have liquidity when you are holding cash, but you are compromising on profitability. On the other hand, if I invest all the cash in business, I'll have higher profitability, but then जो भी करंट लाइबिलिटीज है, जो भी अनफोर्सीन कंटिजेंसीज है, उनके लिए मेरे पास लिक्विड फंड्स नहीं है, तो आई हैव लो लिक्विडिटी बट हाई प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी. So this trade-off needs to be balanced by the business. So that effective utilization of funds, maintaining this liquidity profitability trade-off is one of the foremost objectives of cash management. Next is avoiding insolvency. As I told you, if you invest everything in the business, then the business is at risk of insolvency. So this is what needs to be covered under cash management. Next and the last topic is on receivable management. Important, इसमें theory भी है और इसमें practical भी है जो हम cover करेंगे. So let's first start with the theory part of receivable management. So as you can see, just a second. So what are receivables? Receivables are basically your debtors, trade receivables, account receivables, the money which is due from the party which is availing the facility of credit sales by the business. So जो buyer है जिसने अभी तक आपको payment नहीं करी है, the account of that buyer under the broad umbrella of accounts receivable is basically the management of debtors and their accounts in the business. Okay, so what is the main factor which affects receivables management? What that is your credit terms which are offered by the business. Now, no business can operate purely on cash sales. It is very rare. Okay. Earlier also I gave you example that services, they seldom have any investment in receivables because most of these services are operating on cash basis. In business, your manufacturing business will have more receivables as compared to public utility. Public utility will be more of a service industry, but trading concern जो है उसमें receivables होंगे but कम होंगे as compared to a manufacturing business. So receivables management what we study is depending on the nature of your business. What credit policies are offered by the business? What collection policies are observed by the business? Because receivables in themselves they involve a cost. What kind of cost is involved in receivables? Can anyone tell me? Receivables में क्या cost involved होती है? So are receivables cost free for the business? Debtors cost free होते हैं business के लिए? Yes or no class? What is the risk with debtors?
Ma'am, they might not return the money, like as in the case of bad debt.
Bad debt is the biggest threat in terms of failure of your debtors to pay back the money. Then cost of investment in receivables, very good, Vishal. You are holding cash. There's an opportunity cost involved. अगर यही आपको पैसे मिल जाते, आपको दूसरे किसी सोर्स से कैश को अरेंज करने की जरूरत ना पड़ती. Losses of bad debts and collection expenses, very good. Collection expenses क्या है? You are sending reminder to the debtor to make payment. Then if they are failing to make payment, say you're sending legal notice, आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कलेक्शन का डिपार्टमेंट है, वहां पे आपने कुछ एम्प्लॉयज हायर करे हुए हैं इस पर्पस के लिए, वो सब जो एक्सपेंडिचर हो रहा है, that is all becoming a cost of the receivables. Okay, so all this requires funds. Okay, and that cost needs to be minimized. So that is the objective of receivables management. Okay, so just have a look at the first statement. Credit is the soul of business. If your competitors are offering credit and you're not offering credit to your customers, then you are at loss. So it becomes a necessary norm in the business to offer credit to your customers. Okay, objectives of receivables management. So there is a benefit involved, there is a cost involved. Cost, as we have discussed, benefit क्या होता है receivables का? इससे आपकी sales की value increase हो जाती है. So again a trade-off is involved. The cost benefit of receivables management that needs to be balanced by the financial manager. So see, these are the specific objectives of receivables management. First is to evaluate the credit worthiness of customers. Now, the business won't be offering credit to each and every customer. That depends on the credit history of the customer, the size, quantum of sales which the business is making to the customer, and then, as I said, what is the industry norm in this regard. Then next is to minimize the cost of investment in receivables, to minimize the possible bad debt losses. Okay, so bad debt losses कैसे आप minimize कर सकते हो? By checking the credit history of the customer. Next is to formulate the credit terms, minimize the cost of running credit and collection department, and to maintain a trade-off between the cost and benefits associated with the credit policy of the firm. Then factors affecting the size of receivables management. The first and foremost factor is size of credit sales. तो जितनी ज्यादा क्रेडिट सेल्स होंगी उतना ज्यादा आपका रिसीवेबल्स मैनेजमेंट में इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी. ओके, बिकॉज there is a direct relation, very obvious relation. More is the percentage of credit sales in the business, higher will be the investment in receivables. Next is credit policy. Now, within the same industry, different firms might have different approaches to credit sales. Some firms might have a very liberal credit policy, while others may have conservative credit policy, and hence the size of receivables would be dependent on the same. Then terms of trade, again क्या नॉर्म फॉलो हो रहा है इंडस्ट्री में, उस पे आपका रिसीवेबल्स का साइज डिपेंड करता है. नेक्स्ट इज एक्सपेंशन प्लान. नाउ इफ अ बिजनेस वांट्स टू एक्सपैंड, then it will need more customers, and for that you will have to increase the credit sales, offer more liberal credit terms to your customers, and hence the size of receivables will also increase. Then relation with profits. अगर फर्म के पास फर्म को इंक्रीज करने हैं profits, then it will have to increase the size of receivables also. Credit collection efforts. Okay, If a firm has a department which is totally devoted to credit collection, तो उस केस में आपके रिसीवेबल्स की जो अमाउंट है वो फॉल करेगी, जितनी एफिशिएंसी से आपका डिपार्टमेंट वर्क करेगा. Then habit of customers. Some customers are very prompt with payment, some delay payment. So all that will affect the size of receivables. Then cost of maintaining debtors. As I told you, what is the cost of receivable? First is the collection cost. Second is the cost of financing. So opportunity cost involved in maintaining debtors. Then third term is delinquency cost. Okay. If there is a delay in payment by the customer, आपने 2 मंथ्स का टाइम दिया पेमेंट के लिए, 2 मंथ्स के बाद भी कस्टमर ने पेमेंट नहीं करी, तो जो भी आप रिमाइंडर भेज रहे हो, लीगल नोटिस भेज रहे हो, and the opportunity cost involved, that all becomes the delinquency cost. Another term is default cost. Default cost क्या हो गई? Cost of bad debts. तो बैड डेट्स डिक्लेयर होने से पहले पहले जो भी एफर्ट करती है फर्म टू रिकवर बैक दी मनी, दैट कम्स अंडर द delinquency cost. So when customer refuses or is unable to pay the debt, then that becomes a bad debt, and this becomes part of the default cost for the business. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll stop here. Scope of receivables management I'll take up tomorrow with the practical to be covered.